Hello and welcome to this special series. And I am so excited again to be bringing you the awareness, the tools and the knowledge so that you can thrive after narcissistic abuse. And what's been so amazing about these interviews is that I know so many of you have been really enjoying these riveting conversations that are deeply informational with extraordinary, revolutionary women that are true visionaries for our healing and our evolution. And today's interview is absolutely going to be no exception. So this special series has been such a celebration of the launch that's coming up of my new book, That You Can Thrive After Narcissistic Abuse, which is released on the 13th of November. For more details, you can go to youthanthrive.book.com and you can actually pre-order and secure yourself a copy of it. So you'll get it as soon as it comes out. Now, today's interview is with one of my most favorite badass women on the planet who is doing incredible things, and she's Dr. Jeanine Staples. A lot of you love her in the community, but for those of you who've never met Jeanine, she is an associate professor of literacy and language, African American studies, and women's gender and sexuality studies at the Pennsylvania State University. Jeanine is super smart. She has got so many degrees that it makes my head spin. She does incredible work in the world because she focuses on dismantling supremacist patriarchies through research, teaching and coaching. And she's a sought after scholar, educator and coach. Jeanine has received numerous awards for her work. And she's the creator of the Supreme Love Project, which is really amazing. She rocks it with her fierce and passionate teachings. And it's a movement. It's a growing out of Jeanine's research and teaching to support the projects of helping marginalised people, mainly women and people of colour, to heal their relational and social terrors, so that they can launch revolutions in their lives. So it's very powerful work that Jeanine's doing. And it's just an honour always to do. Jeanine's interviewed me, I've interviewed her. We always have riveting conversations. That's generally how we roll. And today is going to be great because we're going to be talking together and getting a lot of Jeanine's views of recovery from narcissistic abuse. What are the steps, expectations and possibilities? So Jeanine, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's a joy to have you.
Melanie, it is a pleasure to be here. You know you're one of my favorite people. I feel so excited about this conversation and spending time with you and being invited to be here. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, Jeanine, let's get started because you're one of us. You're one of the tribe.
I am.
You've been through narcissistic abuse. You've been through recovery. So share a little bit with the audience what you went through.
So, I've learned in my work and in my research that every woman who's been through narcissistic abuse has a little bit of a different story, but something that is common to all of us is this quantum truth, which is that whatever is happening in our exterior is a mirror for what is happening in our interior. And so my first conscious encounter, that a recognizable, unmistakable encounter with narcissistic abuse came about 15 years ago when I was in graduate school. I had what's called like a confluence of terrors, a whole lot of collapsing in my life that caused me to really break down a lot of my defenses and lay bare a lot of my codependent tendencies. So my father was diagnosed with congenital heart failure. My sister was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. They called it too late to save her. My grandparents were getting elderly and sick and were hospitalized, great-grandparents, great-uncles. So I had come from a very Huxtable-like family with parents who were in love with each other. I had an idyllic childhood, and I always felt loved and safe in so many ways. And so my nuclear family was everything to me, and I had no idea how codependent I was. in my own nuclear family. I had no idea how much I was depending on my family to tell me my worth and my value, to help me to be clear about who I was or who I could be in the world, until that family started to collapse, until members started to die. And so I felt so fragile and so vulnerable that my codependent tendencies just really exploded onto my skin. And so I encountered this man, not unlike a lot of people's narcissistic codependent relationships. He was tall, dark, handsome, rich. And he told me everything that I wanted to hear. I was love bombed beyond anything that I thought was possible. Flowers, candy, roses, trips, gifts, and you are the woman I've always been searching for mantras that kept coming. And so basically what I mean is the confluence was a perfect storm. I was grieving the loss of family members. I felt alone in the world. I felt petrified and scared. I felt destabilized in my identity. I didn't really feel confident in who I was or what I was worth. And here came this narcissist who could really smell blood in the water. He could smell my neediness. He could smell and taste my desperation to be defined and to be claimed. And he took full advantage. He swooped in and he love bombed me. And I was mesmerized by him. The sex was amazing. The poetry, the music. He had a huge $100,000 car and a house on a hill. It was just like a fairy tale. And I got swept up in this, did not know that he had a pregnant fiance, that he had a total double life, that he was clearly just using me. And the gaslighting started, the splitting started, the mirroring started, the emotional neglect started, the disappearing act started, and I just experienced more collapsing. I felt like everything that was happening was my fault. I started to blame myself. I lost my self-respect. I lost my self-trust. I lost my ability to shine, to be present. I literally, Mel, started to shrink. I got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was in that network of terror for about 2 years before I decided that I had to get away from this person.
And it's big, and the recovery is big, and we're going to go through some of the steps. I just want to pinpoint what you said there about you had the beautiful nuclear family, and in many ways I did too, yet I had incredible codependent tendencies. And I think what can happen is that when we get sheltered, when we have those lovely parents that do so much for us and look out for us and look after us, because they really think they want to feather our nest and they want to help and they want to make our road less bumpy and all of those things, we may not have grown up with the ability to really be self-resourceful and self-soothe, because we've had them to pick up the pieces if anything goes wrong. I know for myself, when I got out there, and I was absolute prey for narcissists, I was really looking for somebody, another parent again.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Same here. I loved my parents, and my father has since passed. Love my mother. She's one of my favorite people. She's super smart. I would say to my mom, if you weren't my mom, I'd want to be your friend. I love her, love hanging out with her. And what I was doing when I left my parents' house was I was looking for another one of them. I was looking for someone to take responsibility for my thoughts, take responsibility for my feelings, to look after me, to direct me. And I had no idea about what was happening in my subterrane. I didn't understand myself. So this is the other thing that I'd like to be clear about, especially to a fraction of your audience in NARP, in the NARP community, is just like in the Supreme Love Project community. Most of the women who are codependents are really phenomenal, like phenomenal women.
100%.
You are brilliant. You are intelligent. You are well-read. You are thoughtful. You are well-traveled. You are well-educated. You are beautiful, glamorous. You've got all kinds of, you're athletic. I mean, you're interesting. You're curious. You're dynamic in so many ways. And so as powerhouse phenomenal women, I often say we miss the message of our interior life because our exterior life is so glittery.
So true.
You know what I mean? So I felt completely shocked by my own behavior, Mel. I felt surprised. I actually remember a conversation that I had with myself with this same narcissist who I dated, my first narcissist 15 years ago. He was so rude to me. He had done so many sketchy, shady things to me. I actually at one point said to myself, Jeanine, how much more are you going to take? I felt surprised by my level of acceptance that I just acquiesced. And it was because I was unfamiliar with my interior life. My exterior life was well taken care of, was very polished, was very well performed. I had a checklist of accomplishments and achievements that the world told me were a marker of success. I paid very little attention to what was going on inside of me and the weaknesses that I had in self-definition and self-possession. I just wasn't aware.
Perfect. And I think there's really the two reasons for that we do that is, well, we've had, as we've said, other people taking care of it. You know, my family weren't probably as close as yours. They were great at providing and looking out for you and stepping in if you had trouble. And you always knew that mum and dad would be there for security, survival, all those sorts of things. But they were very, very busy. I found growing up that my accomplishments, a lot of them, were to try and earn approval and recognition and love, because it was, you know, well, have you done this and have you done that? And, you know, did you get a straight A? Did you win that sporting thing? Because that's when I got the attention. So, but again, it was like everything in my outer life is very, very good, but it's codependence, isn't it? We're so super focused. We're so over functioning and we're trying to be the best. We're outpouring that way, but our inner world is so screaming for us to turn inside and be that self-lover, that self-soother, that self-support. I remember when I woke up to narcissistic abuse, and as you said, so within, so without, that when he was criticizing me and telling me I was never good enough and giving me this hoop and that hoop and the other hoop to jump through, that when I realized my own self-talk and how horrific, how I was never perfect enough or skinny enough or beautiful enough or accomplished enough, or I didn't have enough friends, or I didn't have enough this, or I didn't have enough that, he was simply mirroring to me what I thought of myself.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, same for me. That's when I came to realize that, and this was a hard lesson for me, Mel, to admit that I was seeing in my exterior life evidence of my interior life, that some of the nasty, mean, cruel, hurtful words that were hurled at me, or some of the really cruel behaviors that were exacted upon me, were things that I was tolerating. And not only that, it was things that I was accepting. More than tolerating them, I was accepting them and starting to expect them. And they were a reflection of what I was really thinking about myself. It was a very startling awareness,
Absolutely. I agree, Jeanine. And in my breakdown, you know, when I had that on the bathroom floor, that was the rush of information. But this is actually about you, and this is about your relationship with yourself. And it's, yeah, here's the evidence of that, projecting out into the field and then coming and showing you what you need to heal. It's such a big journey. Let's have a look at that step. So we understand that this is a reflection of our inner world. What are the first steps that we can start taking to recover from narcissistic abuse?
Well, in a previous conversation, I said no contact, just get out of communication. And I still think that is involved in some of the first few steps.
Yes.
But there are things that can and often do precede no contact. And, you know, it does start with certain practices where you sort of start to snap yourself out of like the hypnotic energy of narcissistic abuse. I can remember feeling so dazed and confused. Gaslighting can really, really confuse a person to the extent that we really do question reality. We misremember details. We don't trust ourselves with our own memories. And so one of the things that I did start to do, even before I did no contact, as a step in my recovery, is I started to write down things that I did well. So I started to give myself challenges. because I started to feel so bad about myself, because my then boyfriend would criticize me constantly, judge me constantly, pick me apart constantly, make jokes about my clothes, my hair, my skin, my eyes were too big at some point. My smile was too big at some point. There was always something wrong. I said to myself, what I'm going to need to do for myself is remember, I arrived in this relationship a fully formed adult. I wasn't born here. And this person isn't really my father or my God. He doesn't get to tell me who I am. I know that I've done good things. I know that I've made accomplishments. I know that I have something of record in my world and in my life that shows and proves that I was here and that I was doing something of note with my life. So I started to make lists of things that I did well. And it would start with anything. Like at the time I said, I make really good rice and stir-fried vegetables. I would write that down. I cook pretty well. You know, I would write down things like, you know, I clean up really well. I get compliments on how neat and tidy my home is. So I'm writing that on my list. And I started to write down things that I did well, really to save myself from falling into a trap of agreeing with him, agreeing with the narcissistic abuser that I was good for nothing and that I was a total mess. And so that's a good step that I started with that I'm remembering now. That was absolutely integral. I just started getting my journal out and making lists to wake myself up. There are things that I do well. There are things that are wonderful about me. There are things that are interesting about me. I'm going to write them down and I'm going to claim them for myself. And it really helped.
Yeah, that's great. I really love that. And if you can get that space with no contact, which is so important, it's so important because when you're caught up in, you know, it's like that terrorist tormenting situation whereby your emotions and your thoughts are controlled by what somebody else is or isn't doing. So we can't get into our body to start self-partnering and self-soothing and self-healing when our whole focus is on what you are doing, and it's trauma bonding. You are literally trauma bonded. You know, when that person's nice, you've got incredible relief, which can feel like love and Stockholm syndrome and, oh my God, we're going to make it. You know, you're in a cycle of violence. But then absolutely. And then when that person is horrible again, you're activated into all those peptides of helplessness and victimization, self-loathing, and you're in this hooked up cycle that's so chemical and physiological and hard to break out of. So it's about getting the space and the detachment, you know, modified with boundaries. But it's so, I love what you're saying, Jeanine, because rather than fighting back and going, well, no, that's not true. I am this, I am that. It's horrible when we're trying to convince somebody of our worth who is using that to abuse us, using that tactic. But when you pull back and you come into yourself and realize that the only person I need to convince about my worth and value is me, and then we stop hooking into people who don't agree with us, just like a healthy person no longer eats junk food.
Yes. One of the things that I say to women in my community is, even though you might feel compelled to defend yourself, to argue, to pursue long, drawn-out circular conversations in order to win, in order to triumph in some way, resist. There is no good outcome in arguing with a narcissist. The average narcissist has been functioning in a disordered way since probably childhood, adolescence. We are no competition for that argument. It is better to do no contact, remove yourself from the situation as best you can, and focus in on what it is that you like and love and respect and honor about yourself. I completely agree with you, Mel.
100%. Oh gosh, and those defense mechanisms, if you are arguing with a narcissist, it's like arguing with an angry 5-year-old who's got around 21 specific defense mechanisms that will make your head spin, and they're defense mechanisms that you can't even fathom, let alone know how to use yourself. You're way out of your depth. Don't even go there. Don't even touch it, because the narcissist couldn't care less about who you are, what you stand for. All they are doing is getting your attention. The more upset that you get, the more angry and frustrated you get, the more it feeds their sense of significance. That's all they're after. So don't feed the lion. Don't feed the bear. Don't feed the crocodile. Pull away. There's nothing to gain there. There's not. So we know that we need to detach. We need to stop hooking in and trying to convince the narcissist that we are this good person, that we do have integrity, that we are tidy, that we are whatever, A, B, through to Z, which they're telling us that we're not. We stop doing that. Now, what's our next steps? You know, how do we reclaim our soul and our lives, Jeanine?
So one of the things that I teach the women in my community is that in order for us to experience recovery and to stay in recovery and actually move into a space away from just surviving to, as you say, Mel, thriving after narcissistic abuse, it is absolutely imperative for a woman to learn how to do deep work. Deep work with the fragmented, disowned, and orphaned and wounded parts of herself who have been spinning out narratives of need, of lack, of poverty, and of scarcity in our subterranean for decades. So typically 20, 30, sometimes 40 or 50 years, a woman has been socialized from girlhood to be in a space of need and to be in a space of invisibility in the world. And undoing the narratives that we are telling to ourselves in our subconscious, in our subterranean, is an order of business. That's the first order of business after narcissistic abuse. We've got to get in there. You got to go into the spaces that scare you the most. It's really what it means to come home to yourself. Coming home to yourself means engaging with the stories and the parts of yourself that you feel ashamed of, that you feel shocked by, that you feel surprised by, that you want to distance and detach yourself from, and really learn to form engagements with those parts of yourself from a space of authority and deep compassion and unconditional love and radical acceptance. When you learn those processes, those steps to actually create an energetic shift in your skin, that's where you have memory. It's in your body. When you learn those practices, those modalities, those methods from an expert like Melanie, from an expert like me, from experts like several other people who are in conversation in this series, then you can start to actually heal the peptide addiction. You can actually shift what's happening with you at a cellular level so that you can literally free yourself from even the hint that a narcissist would feel attraction to you or would be able to hook into you ever again. Got to go inside.
Perfect. And I love that, Jeanine, how passionate you are about that, because I'm so passionate about that too. And I know with spiritual and self-development, I was doing decades of work on myself and my codependency and my abandonment traumas and how I would hand power away in relationships. And it was all about, you know, trying to get relationships right. And I'd done so much until the NARC experience breakdown, where I got led to body modalities and into actually doing the work inside my inner being, inside my emotional, physical body that was holding on to traumas and experiences and things that my cognitive mind, I love what experts like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Bessel Van Colt and all of those people, Candace Pert, deceased now, she knew this stuff, is that, you know, it's all going on inside your body and your brain follows your body. And if we don't meet ourselves at those deep, vulnerable, broken, underdeveloped, fearful, traumatic parts of ourselves, if we don't meet them and heal them back to wholeness and up into a solid adult, we are going to show up with abusers as still broken children in adult bodies. You know, when I used to have narcissists walking out the door, abandoning me, I was hanging onto their legs like a 3-year-old girl that was hyperventilating and vomiting. That was not an adult woman in her body who had the resources to be her own source of love, approval, security, and survival. And Jeanine, you're saying this is a big thing for women. When we look back, I know in Australia we had a series about the suffragettes and how women didn't have the vote, and how women who, it's only 200 years ago, that if they were single mothers, they were having to put their babies in the Yarra River to drown them because they couldn't afford to feed them. The dependencies that women have had on men, it's in our DNA, is if I'm thrown out of the hut, I'm going to die. And it doesn't matter if you're a CEO of 3 companies. I've worked with women that feel like they're dying. I felt like I was dying, even though I had incredible security. We all did. Now, I don't want this conversation just to be for women. Men, the amount of men that I've worked with narcissists, they could have had mothers that trained them into, you need to organize around my disorder and my sickness to get my love and approval. So there's men out there trying to please their woman. You can never please a narcissist. And they're doing everything they can, and she is replaying the fractures from his mother, where he was never good enough to be loved. So it's our fractures that are not just from our childhoods. They're deeply epigenetic. They're generational. I go into past life work as well for the people out there that are spiritual enough to be open to that. We can have so many fractures in the human history that are literal survival programs. If I don't cling to you, I'm dead. If I don't make you well and healthy, then I can't survive. We've handed power away over and over and over again. If we don't, there's so many people that I've had in the NARP programs as members and personal clients that when we found these fractures and released them energetically and brought in a true self replacement and healed what the logical mind can't, those people would never, ever have logically have got out of that. I know with my stuff, I did 20 years of dedicated personal development. You name it, I did it. You name it. I can't even tell you the books, the workshops, the processes, the healers, the therapy that I did. It wasn't until starting to do the shifts inside my body. Do you know what? I wasn't even on the football field, let alone near the goals.
I completely hear you, Mel. I had no idea that there was a part of me deep in my soul, a fractured part, a fragmented part, a disowned part that was echoing the cries of my great-great-great-great-grandmother. That epigenetic coding is real. It is real. I didn't know that part of me was in me, really running and ruining my life. And so I remember, oh gosh, I think it might have been 5 or maybe even 6 years ago now. I don't know if that's the right number, but I was watching you deliver some valuable free content and explaining epigenetics and explaining, these histories that we have. And you gave a challenge basically to go into yourself, to do a quantum level healing, which you developed for the world, to go in and to find whatever it is in your subterranean that's speaking. And I've since developed my own healing methodology. And, but I remember doing yours, and I went in and I found a part of myself that literally said, I will be annihilated. And you used the word annihilation in one of your coaching videos before. I had no idea that there was a part of me that was completely convinced that without a man to claim me and to be touching me or looking at me or validating me or verifying me, that I would disappear, that I would be annihilated, that I would cease to exist. I had no idea that that was happening in myself until I could see in my behavior that that's what I was acting out. I was basically like you, acting like a 3-year-old child that believed that I would die. believed that I would be destroyed if I were separated from this man who was a source of my validation. And it was a startling realization to have as a fully grown adult professional woman. It was a startling revelation to get as a person who's super well educated. Like you said, I've got a bazillion degrees. I felt shocked that there was a part of me that believed those things, and shocked that that part of me was so strong and so slick that I was running my life and making choices and decisions in partnership based on those fallacious beliefs. But it was true.
Wow, you couldn't have said that any better. I've got goosebumps the whole time you're talking about that, because I know the truth of that. And I really want people to understand that when you are in that out of control, when your cortisol and your adrenaline is pumping and your head's going, why can't I stop thinking about this person? Why can't I stop texting them? I remember texting 800 texts in a day. I remember doing that stuff. Why can't I stop this? Why? When we have those survival programs hit, and I promise you at the bottom of them is either annihilation or I am going to lose love, approval, survival, and security, which usually gets back to I can't exist, I'm not safe in the world, and I can't make it on my own. They are terrors. And the thing is, narcissists know, unconsciously, consciously, whatever, they very, very quickly work out your weak link. They work out what to detonate within you. They know how to hook you up and become the source that's missing, so that you feel like they're your God. They're your source at a very deep, unconscious, powerful level. And then they know how to detonate that terror, that trigger, to throw you into total helplessness and powerlessness, and to look to them to fix it for them, which hooks you on harder for narcissistic supply. They know how to do that. So our true healing, this is why people can pull away and do a standard survivor recovery, yet they are still going to have all of the traumas of abuse, often for the rest of their life, post-traumatic stress disorder and agoraphobias and all those things. And until they actually heal the fractures that the narcissist has detonated. And once you do that, then you up-level into a much more incredible being, much more whole, authentic, empowered being than you ever knew you could be. That's the gift of this. That's the thing of this. But if we don't go within, we're going to go without. We're never going to find that stuff. It's huge. It's huge. And those terrors, like one of the biggest terrors that we find out is when we go to speak up and speak our rights and have boundaries. And people may think, I used to, the boundary means somebody else has to get it and agree with you and go, yeah, you're right. No, that's not it at all. A boundary is simply, well, this is my truth. This is my value. This is what I will and won't accept. And you either move up into that space with me or we pull away. You're free to live your life and your truths, whatever they are, and I'm free to live my life and my truths. You don't have to agree with me. The only person who needs to get this is me, and then all of life that is healthy, that agrees, will follow. But what happened with boundaries with narcissists, I know for myself, it was like this white-hot terror. I would become that tongue-tied and fuzzy in the brain. I couldn't even put two words together. And it was this horror of what I call crap, criticism, rejection, abandonment, or punishment if I try to be myself. Women couldn't be themselves. And especially, you have to think about it, revolutionary women that were all about power and truth and authenticity. So many of these women were burned at the stake, millions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I wanted to be clear about, for some of the women who are new to consciousness about narcissistic personality disorder or about codependency, there can be a lot of shame. I remember feeling so ashamed of myself. I remember feeling like I would die if anyone found out about the type of emotional neglect and verbal abuse and financial extortion that I had allowed into my life. I remember feeling like the evidence of my maladaptive, immature, needy, desperate behavior is completely contradictory to the performance of power and strength and phenomenal energy that I'm presenting to the world. I am a complete contradiction. If anybody finds out that I have been swindled by this lying, cheating, mean-spirited, nasty ogre of a man, that I allowed him to swindle me out of thousands of dollars, that I allowed him to speak to me like a bum on the street, like I allowed him to neglect me, that I was begging and running for his attention, I would be finished. So it's not only that I felt the sense of annihilation of being left by him and being rejected by him, I also felt this crippling anxiety about what the world would think of me if they knew that I had accepted this type of treatment, that I had gone back for more time and time again. I felt shame. And so for the women who are watching this, I would just like to say, my heart goes out to you, and it goes out with no judgment. It goes out with no condemnation. It goes out with no vilification. This can happen to anyone, and it happens to many more people than will admit it. One of the things that we were talking about before our technology glitch was of all of the ancestral intergenerational inheritance that we have as girls and as women that we are not aware of, that is literally festering under the surface, what at any time can be triggered over the course of the lifespan. So the shame that anyone may be feeling, what I would like for you to know is that you're not alone. It is not as uncommon as you might think. And don't let that shame keep you in bondage. So what I was saying, Mel, before we were disconnected was that Oprah Winfrey, I remember very distinctly her telling a story, and I was a teenager, so it was clearly 20 some years ago. And she told the story about how she had a show in Chicago. She was a college graduate. She had pledged a sorority. She had done all these spectacular things. She was a world traveler. She was been promoted. She was dating a man who was emotionally and verbally and psychologically abusive. And one day when he was leaving her, after he had told her she was nothing, that she was fat and ugly and stupid, which couldn't be further from the truth, she was clamoring for him, holding on to him. One of the things that we talked about, Mel, before the disconnect was this idea of how we see ourselves devolve into infantile behavior. We see ourselves deconstruct into toddlerhood, and it's just shocking revelation. So here's Oprah Winfrey. Before she was a mega star, but when she was really, really a powerful woman, just like you and I are powerful, educated, well-rounded, attractive women, she was begging this man not to leave her and literally holding on to his suit jacket. She talks about holding on to his suit jacket and like crawling on her knees to follow him out the door. And I say all that to say that is a sign. It is a sign that this type of narcissistic abuse, this codependent energy can happen to anyone. And it behooves us as women to band together, to come together in a space of power and a space of strength to support one another in healing ourselves from our body and from the inside out to move past this. Because any judgment, any shaming, any condemnation, and any ridicule is in fact doing the work of a patriarchal norm. And we don't want to have that rule our lives anymore. We need to be free.
Oh, hear to that. So true. I love what you're saying with all of that. Yes, please. And it's gorgeous when people come forward into our community, and we've got so many people in our NARP community, and the relief is, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. This is really normal. You're going through this too. There's incredible, smart, brilliant, beautiful, loving. This tribe is the most gorgeous people you could ever wish to meet in your life. And there's no judgment because we've all been there. I remember, like you, Jeanine, too, when it was going on with me, I had a college, I had teachers, I was teaching metaphysics, I had all these students, everyone's looking at me as this empowered, spiritual, incredible woman, and yet I was living in the house of Satan. No? It was like night and day, the two lives that I was living. And I totally. How many of you out there are doing this? I know you are. I know you're going to work or you're doing whatever you're doing and you're going home and living you're in a twilight zone. It's crazy. I really want the men out there to know too, because so many of our men say, no, it's easier for you women. You can talk to your girlfriends. Yes, we can. However, please know the shame got us to such an extent. A lot of us didn't even do that. We were so isolated. But men now are coming forward. I get men all the time. You know, my stuff is not gender specific at all. And men say, yeah, but it's only about women and the pictures. And I really want guys out there to know that we have 20% of all of our NARP members are men. And we've got so many people, men in the NARP community, coming forward and sharing their stories and their shame and their pain and healing their wounds. And I love the unity consciousness where we can all heal together and we can really heal these rifts that men and women have had by holding and healing all of us. So guys, please, know that, and, there's a lot of conscious men sharing now, and we're not going, well, you're really weak because you're sharing. We're going, yay to you. We salute you, brother, for being this real, a true man is a real, humble, honest man who's not doing his defenses and his ego and projecting anymore. And it's the same for us women. So we're in an age of authenticity and awakening, and it's very exciting. I really stand for that.
I stand for it too. And I would really, really love to talk about the vision for what's possible after you do no separation, so you do no contact, and after you move past the space of doing your deep healing. What is possible? I needed a vision of what was possible. I had lost so much faith, Mel. So much in the possibility of new love, new friendship, around pride in myself. I didn't have a vision for what could be true.
Jeanine, gosh, isn't that so true? When we're smashed to the ground with narcissistic abuse, what generally happens is everything's dismantled, everything's gone, and everything's lying in rubble at your feet. You've lost your previous life. You've lost your dream. You've often lost your resources. You've lost your sanity. You've lost your self-respect. You've lost your health. You've lost often many years. This often happens to people not so young. They can be 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond. And the catch cry for so many of us, it happened to me at 40, happened to me again at 46. The catch cry is for so many of us, well, how on earth am I going to rebuild everything that I've lost? And look at the stage of my life. And now I don't even have my health and my sanity left. I might have post-traumatic stress disorder. I might have horrific agoraphobia. I might have fibromyalgia. I might have all of these impediments now. I've been smeared. I've been isolated. I've lost family, friends, colleagues, money, property. I might have even lost my children. That's how bad narcissistic abuse is. It's huge. For me, I lost everything. I lost the ability to even function. So what I learned, where my possibility started, was for the first time ever, rather than define myself by what I had, it was define myself by who I am, and define myself by healing the most important relationship ever in my life, which was my relationship with myself. That's where it started for me. And there was actually nothing else to even look at, or there was nothing else left to work with. For myself personally, Jeanine, I know I was so stubborn, outer-based, over-functioning and codependent, sourcing myself from outside of myself, that it took something that dramatic and huge in my life for me to finally turn inwards.
Same for me. I'm a powerful woman. That's what I'd like for the women who are watching, and the brothers, the men who are watching, to know. Typically a codependent person is really big. It's really powerful. It's got so much going on. It will often take a catastrophic set of events to wake you up to the necessity of going home to yourself, of going into yourself and learning who you truly are, and learning how to do radical acceptance, unconditional love with yourself. The same was true for me. I made it out of my narcissistic spin by the skin of my teeth. I say that often. I made it out by the skin of my teeth. I lost time. I lost energy. I lost money. I lost faith. I lost focus. I just got short of losing it all. I didn't lose it all. I didn't lose my house like some people lose their houses. I didn't have children, thank God, with these men to lose them like some people lose to narcissistic partners. But my self-respect, my self-esteem, a good chunk of money, years of my life, that got washed up in the abuse. But when it did, and Mel, you tell the story of how you were on the floor in your bathroom, and that's where your come to Jesus moment happened, where your hallelujah moment happened. Mine was at 2:00 in the morning on my bedroom floor when I dropped to my knees and I sobbed and I said to God, I don't know what to do. I can't fix it anymore. And I said, if you get me out of this, I will spend the rest of my life testifying of your grace and your goodness. If you show me the methods, if you show me the tools, if you give me the insights and the concepts, I'll tell the world. I will tell the world. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what I've done. But going home to yourself is absolutely the most powerful thing that a woman can do for herself. And what I'll say before I defer to you, Mel, around that is, I know that can sound really ambiguous. A lot of times a woman doesn't even know what that means. Like, come home to myself, like, make it plain. And I understand how frustrating it can feel to hear those sort of catchphrases, but essentially what it means to come home to yourself, this is my definition, and Mel, I would love to hear yours. My definition of going home to yourself is really going into your body, it's going into your soul and going into your soma, and finding the parts of yourself that are storing beliefs that you are not actively in touch with, but that are in your subconscious space, and paving way for them to rise up to be healed so that you can make apparent to yourself your underlying belief systems and possess them of yourself and bless them. Show them the light of day and move them out of your body. Move them energetically out of your skin, out of your blood, out of your joints. Clean, clear, clean, clear. That is what it means to come home to yourself. It means to make yourself a house for yourself, a dwelling that you love and that you like and that you recognize as safe and secure. That is the way that I can describe what it means.
Perfect. I agree. And we both 100% agree on that. And that's it. Coming home to ourselves, because our inner landscape, by the time we get to narcissistic abuse, it's like a war zone. And this is the problem in abuse recovery that consistently happens. People say to me, psychologists get in touch with me and go, but how can people meet their trauma? They can't face that stuff. It's going to take them out. It's going to tear them apart. We're all terrified of turning inwards when our inner landscape has become like a Beirut war zone. And in the past, what we were trying to do was cognitively manage our traumas, which means the trauma is going to be stuck there. It's going to stay there. How do I manage that? So I know for myself, even before narcissistic abuse, I had trauma. I was trying to do that with affirmations. I was trying to do that with oming. I was trying to do that with exercise. I was trying to do that with diet. And it was exhausting having to always work at personal development over and over and over and over again to try to quell my inner traumas and soothe them. But what we realize, as Jeanine's saying, that we now have quantum ways where we can actually bless and accept that trauma and that terror. And we can go to it like it is a small, terrified child. And as adults, we would say to our kids, if only I could take that away for you. Now we can. We literally can. We can get into our bodies, and with quantum tools, we can be with the energy. And this is what's so important when you start doing energy work. You actually don't even need to get into the story. You can breathe into it and be with it in your body in quantum ways with a process, which is what quantum freedom healing is. I write about it in my book. It's in the NARP program. You can load it up You can release it through visualization. You can bring in your higher self, which is your superconscious, which is God, which is source, which is creation, which is life force, which is that cellular coded supreme intelligence that knows how to be and knows how to be whole. And we can bring that in to replace where the trauma was. And when we do that, we get a shift out of those young, helpless, powerless terrors into a calm and a solidness and a knowing that we could spend 40 to 50 years in therapy trying to do that, and it's very hard. And I was on the track of 20 years of it. Or we can do the shifts in our body where we go, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm not thinking about that anymore. And I'm actually thinking completely differently about it, because they're proving now in neuroscience, which is so exciting, that our pioneers are now showing us that when we get an epiphany and a body shift, when we get a change of a feeling in our body, our neuron pathways will literally let go of a brain synapses wiring and reform a new one instantly. That's what a shift is. It's like when you have an epiphany moment, when all of a sudden something's happened in your life where you have an epiphany and you're never the same again. That's what body shifts are doing for us. And this is what we're saying. But you can't do this when you're just in your head. That's the disconnect. It's so like if you were going to work on a car engine and the engine, something's kaput in there, if you keep the bonnet closed and you're standing outside in your mind trying to guess what's wrong, you don't even know. You have to open the bonnet. You've got to go in there and investigate and find it and take that faulty part out and put in a healthy one.
One of the things I also wanted to say, I just implore women and men who are watching this, who are ready to feel this miracle, who are ready to have healthy boundaries, who are ready to reclaim voice and reclaim time. It's absolutely possible. I have not met very, very rare people. By and large, I would say 95% of the people that I've met who are committed to healing their codependency and who are committed to severing the ties from a narcissistic spin can do it. Here's the thing. It's absolutely crucial to have a coach, to have a curriculum, and to have a community. If you think you're going to do it by yourself because you're super smart or you're super independent or you're trying to hide because you're very, very private and you're feeling really ashamed, don't waste more time. Etch yourself into a community of practice, of other like-minded people who are committed to doing deep healing in their subterrane, who are ready to move that trauma out of their skin, out of their blood, out of their bones, who understand intergenerational inheritance. Get a coach who understands some of the pitfalls and some of the tripwire and some of the stumbling blocks on the pathway, who can guide you and encourage you to keep going when you feel like quitting, because a peptide addiction is just like any other addiction. If you've ever seen anybody withdraw from any palpable narcotic substance, it is scary. You have physical and emotional reactions to that withdrawal. It is imperative to have a coach, a curriculum, and a community to guide you through from abused, from victim to survivor to thriving. It is a process and it needs a path. And so I just want to be very clear for everyone in that conversation. Definitely be hopeful. Definitely be excited that there is hope on the other side of this. Don't be fooled into thinking that you can do it on your own. You need to have a community and a coach and a good solid curriculum.
Yeah, and look, I totally agree with that, because there is so much power in group containers. There is so much relief in knowing you're not alone. And what we find in our community is that people that are in the NARP community forum who are asking questions, and, you know, you don't have to be Robinson Crusoe. People have healed those particular beliefs and they've had that experience that you're going through. And, you know, when those survival programs hit, you are going to get thrown into your brain and start the stinking thinking. And sometimes you just need somebody to say, less thinking, more shifting. This is the module to use. This is what to target. This is how you can do that. We're all standing here. We're your wings. We're, you know, and post. Tell us how you got on with that. And I think there's a balance with that, because we do need the guidance and the help with how to connect to ourselves, but we've also got to do that time too. You know, we can get caught up in, I'm getting too much of other people's opinions and I'm leaning too much too. You know, I need to get my guidance, but at the end of the day, I know for myself, you know, so much of my development was wailing out my wounds on the couch with the quantum freedom healing process that was hours and hours between me and my creator. No, that's where the real work happened. But having our community and having, look, it's invaluable, and it's the power of group healing is exceptional, and sometimes you might be feeling like, I found in my recovery and so many people, it's those times where you feel like, oh my God, I'm done. I can't go forward. I've hit that biggest bottom out that you could imagine. You are that close to your miracle at that time. I love the expression that the greatest daylight comes after the deepest dark. You know, dawn's going to break after the darkest time. And this is so, so true. So sometimes we just need to be reminded that. And so many people in the forum would come forward and they go, oh my God, you know, like, oh, I've been going so well, and bang, here I am. I can't believe I'm at this place. And we know, as thrivers and moderators, we know you are that close. This particular trauma has come up so hard and heavy because it's time for it to shift. Now, all we have to do is connect you to your body to find it, to shift it out, to bring in the light, and you are going to go ping up to your next level. That's exciting. Sometimes we need people to help us with that.
Absolutely. And I would definitely agree with you. Of course, I did quantum freedom level healing. I do my own supreme love healing methodology, which is also a quantum level healing. And I know the fact, absolutely true, the ultimate shifts that you will experience are between you and God. Just you and God, between you and your creator. Find your prayer closet, find your office space, find your bedroom, close the door, get into it, get ready, really move your body, do the visualizations, follow the coaching, and do the work. And it might take hours, several sessions, dozens of sessions. There were fragmented parts of myself that I found, Mel, that literally were hiding from me, that I couldn't bring from the shadows, that I needed to go in and do healing techniques and do methodologies for supreme love again and again and again. And that is only completed by me. That could only be completed by me. And so I completely agree with you around the individual's responsibility to herself, and that you cannot depend other people to do the work of healing your skin and your body, to healing the trauma from your blood. And it's so beautiful and powerful when you come up out of that experience, when you can tap into the forum and when you can go into the groups for supreme love and say to someone, here's what I've experienced, here's what I've accomplished, here's what I broke through, here's where I broke down, this is what's going on, and claim that victory publicly within a sphere of like-minded people. Those two states of experience, that individual experience that you have with you and your creator, and that cooperative experience that you have with like-minded souls who are on the same journey, both are invaluable. And they need, in my opinion, to go in parallel, in lockstep with one another towards your revelation for thriving.
I agree, and I couldn't agree more. So, look, I think we've had this conversation, and look, it's a big journey, and we can have all sorts of expectations in the journey. Quickly, we will touch on that, because I know that I used to, and a lot of people go, well, how long is it going to take? And when am I going to heal? And okay, is it going to be, you know, because we're doers, codependents are like, well, let's get down to it, let's muscle in, and let's get the job done. You know, that's how we tend to approach things. So is it going to be 1 month? Is it going to be 2 months? Is it going to be 3 months? And I used to know that I was stuck in the beliefs of, unless I get this right and unless I'm perfectly healed, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. So we need to shift that too, to say, I am always going to be a work in progress. Gosh, you know, Jeanine, you're probably the same too. You know, I was shifting out traumas only yesterday. Okay. But the thing is, okay, we're lightening our suitcase all the time. And at first you're in the trenches, digging out the sludge to survive. Then you get beyond that. And then you're digging out stuff to up level. And then you're digging up stuff, which is always going to be triggered to just expand further and further and further into the trajectories that might have been challenging for you, whether it be love, whether it be exercise, whether it be, you know, you and I are way beyond narcissists. You know, we are off the snack menu. We just don't do them anymore. Okay, but we are still, this is the beautiful thing, increasing our lives, because the more trauma-free, the more life force and source flows through us as miracle. So, you know, we're never going to stop growing and expanding. You and I can still both have triggers that hurt and traumas that hit us. But the difference is when you are orientated as a thriver, rather than going to the fridge and getting a piece of chocolate cake, rather than, you know, trying to distract yourself or going for alcohol or a cigarette or a bad relationship or whatever it is we used to do to stop the inner horrible feeling and add to it, we go to it. We say, okay, there's something inside me that's not aligned, that's an old trauma or a negative belief that I can find and release and bring in more of God to become who I really am.
Yes. Yes.
When you have that orientation, no longer are you dismayed. Oh my God, I feel awful. I've had a trigger. This person set me off. They treated me like this. We don't do that anymore. We go, yay, I bless and accept this feeling because now I've got something I can find to release to bring in more of who I really am. That's the thriver orientation that we both live by. And that's thousands of people in our communities live by this orientation. So all of life, including the triggers, becomes awesome, and we don't have to be perfect. I'd be really dismayed if I don't get triggers, because then there'd be nothing to further expand into.
Exactly. One of the things that I say in my community is that, you know, what we do in our orientation is what I say to women is, you are a spirit having an earthly experience.
Yes.
Okay. You are a spirit, and you are stewarding your soul, your imagination, your cognitive center, where you are creating ideas and visions and fantasies, and you are residing in your soma, this material space that is harboring your memories. So you need to learn as a spirit how to orchestrate the whole entirety of your kingdom. And you essentially are an ocean and an Amazon. You are an ocean and an Amazon. So God forbid that there is an end to triggers. God forbid that there's an end to trauma. We don't want, that's not our goal. Our goal is to become masterful at taking hold of those triggers and those traumas and healing them and blessing them and learning from them and releasing them and drawing in new expansive energy inside of ourselves. That's the dance we're doing with God. That's the dance we're doing with the universe in our evolutionary nature. And that is the beauty of being alive.
Oh,
so we don't want no more triggers, and we don't want no more traumas. What we want is mastery. We want mastery of leadership, of self. That's what we were looking for.
Amen to that. That is perfect. You couldn't have put that more perfectly. And I tell you what, there is no force on the planet that hits our triggers and smashes them up into consciousness more than narcissists, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. And I will say, you know, in closing, the current executive leader of the United States right now, I believe, is a sufferer of NPD. And the way that he is creating a crash in the States and in the world is very evident, in case in point of what you are saying right now, Mel. He's waking up so many aspects of consciousness and citizenry and activity in the world that would not have happened apart from that kind of negating energy.
I absolutely agree. I really do. Well, Jeanine, thank you so much for joining me. We always have amazing conversations. I could talk to you for days on end.
I could. It would be amazing. One day I'm going to get over to Australia and hang out with you. for sure.
Well, when I'm over in the States in February, we've got to catch up.
I would love it. Tell me where you're going to be and we'll work it out.
Oh, we totally will. I don't care how it has to happen. I'm coming to you or you're coming to me, one or the other. It's going to be amazing. So everybody, I hope that you really enjoyed this interview and you got a lot of takeaways from it. We'll be putting up show notes with it, and the most important highlights. And please join in this rich discussion that Jeanine and I have been having by posting any of your comments or your questions below. And the guys, join in as well. This is absolutely, you know, for all of us. So everybody, look out for my book. So exciting. You can go to youcanthrivebook.com to find out more details. And I want to thank everybody for your awakening, your evolutionary process, and for having the courage and the guts and the badass, you know, self to go, I am not going to just accept mere survival and living with trauma. I want to be the biggest and best that I can be for me and the world and our future generations. So everybody, lots of love. Bye-bye.